Mean Girls is a classic teen comedy that was released in 2004. The movie was written by Tina Fey, directed by Mark Waters, and starred Lindsay Lohan, Rachel McAdams, and Tina Fey. In a screenwriting class I took in college, a professor told me how Mean Girls is a perfect example of the Aristotelian film structure, which is characterized by a clear beginning, middle, and end, with a well-defined plot and a moral lesson at the end. And I'll explain to you why. Spoilers ahead. The Aristotelian film structure is based on the principles outlined by the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle, who believed that a good story should have a clear beginning, middle, and end, and it must contain a protagonist and an antagonist. It generally contains the following: inciting incident, bridge 1, plot twist 1, bridge 2, midpoint, bridge 3, plot twist 2, battle/climax, and resolution. The battle and climax are often separate and their order can be interchanged. So with that in mind, let's see if Mean Girls fits the structure. First, the characters. Who is our protagonist? Well, as iconic as Regina George may be, she's not the protagonist. It's Katie. How can we recognize the protagonist? This may seem like an easy question, but sometimes it isn't. In film, we can have many strong characters, but there has to be a protagonist. At least in Aristotelian film structure. We can identify our protagonist by asking ourselves to whom are the plot twists happening to. We can see our protagonist as a driver. There may be many others in the car, but only one is taking the decisions that affect the story. And our antagonist is, drum rolls, Regina George. There may be many characters that are the quote-unquote enemies of our protagonist, but only one who goes against the protagonist's goals. It's important to keep in mind that the antagonist may even be a quote-unquote good guy, and the protagonist may be a quote-unquote bad guy, like in the show Ozark, where we root for the quote-unquote bad guy. But that's because the story is about him. That being said, let's dive into those points. An inciting incident is when a character's world starts to change. We see this as kicking off the ball in the game. It starts the motion of the film, and that is when Katie gets into this new high school after being homeschooled and living in Africa. Then comes the first bridge. Bridges serve as a way to provide some space for exposition and to introduce new characters. Our bridge would be when Katie meets his new friends, Damien and Janice. Then we have our first plot twist. Plot twists are situations that change the objective of the protagonist. When Katie started school, her goal was not to become a member of the Plastics for an ulterior motive. So our first plot twist is when Katie joins the Plastics. Then we have our next bridge, which is when Katie's relationship with the Plastics progresses. Then we have our midpoint. The midpoint can be seen as a point of no return for the story. So it would be when Katie tells Aaron about Regina and the other guy, essentially taking over Regina George.
Word vomit. I didn't mean to say it, but
she's cheating on you.
What?
Then the next bridge is when Katie, continuing her take over the Plastics, becomes one of them unironically. Then we have our final plot twist, when Katie, Damien, and Janice have a fight over Katie's attitude. This makes Katie realize what she has become.
Still doesn't want you, so why are you still messing with Regina, Katie? I'll tell you why, because you are a mean girl. You're a bitch. Here, you can have this and win a prize.
Then we have the battle. Regina, our antagonist, has a motive that goes against Katie's, our protagonist. So she decides to make the burn book public and drag all the Plastics down with her. In this case, the battle comes first. So naturally, after that, we have our climax. The climax is when our characters evolve and learn from their mistakes. Our climax will be from the point when everyone confesses things, essentially giving everyone a climax, except from Katie. And then when Regina gets hit by a bus. Let's watch that again for educational purposes, of course. And that is because this helps the story. Really, it does. Katie realizes the consequences of her actions even more and decides to change for good. Finally, we have our new life, which is what happens after the climax/battle. This is to show a little bit into the life of our protagonist after their journey, including showing what the protagonist has to do to go back to quote-unquote normal, and that is very clear in the movie. In essence, Mean Girls is a great example on how to structure a movie. It has all the Aristotelian points very clearly marked, and overall, it's a great way to make films entertaining. Sometimes, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Most movies use this structure or slight variations of it. If you're starting to write your own films, this can be pretty handy. If you want more videos like this, let me know. And I would like to give special thanks to my college professor Joan for helping me understand this in the first place. Thanks for watching.